possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm so glad you're tuning in to Ultra MK Podcast. I am Matt Kennedy, and we are together. We are reversing the narrative. And so I am so honored and blessed to have a brand new guest to the show, a very amazing woman who I've had the liberty of getting to know in just a short amount of time, but I honestly feel like somehow we're related or in the spirit that we are connected through Christ consciousness. We have been brought together for these times that we're living in right now, which in my opinion, we're living through history. And if you are gathering the clues and putting the puzzle pieces together, you're a part of this history too, because it's an information war that we're involved in. And I think that more truth that we can share with one another is going to help the entire society, not just of America, but of the entire world, come together to really put together what President Trump is talking about, the golden era. So I am honored and humbled to introduce you to my new friend and hopefully a long-term friend for many years from now in the timeline, Dr. Christiane Northrup. How are you today?
I am terrific. And that weekend that we had out there in Yuba City at the Peace of Heaven and the Embassy of Heaven and the Glad Tidings Church was life-changing. I learned so much about that. And I was doing my social media with different slides and so on. And then I got back and learned that I had lost 2,000 followers on Facebook as a result. And I said, good, meaning we're still relevant, because what I have noticed in my career is that the truth is very often the most censored place. So I want to give you a little, for those of you who don't know me and don't know my story, because a lot of stories have been erased from the media. Just look at my Wikipedia profile. I am a board certified obstetrician gynecologist in 1994. I wrote the first edition of Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, kind of a Bible of women's actual health, not disease screening, women's health. This is in its fifth edition. I was on Oprah with this book and also with The Wisdom of Menopause in 2001. This is now in its fourth edition. And when I wanted help with uh, with marketing this edition, and I was on Oprah 10 times, and these books have been multiple New York Times bestsellers. And when I asked my publishers to help me market this in 2021, I was told, you have to come out against QAnon. And I thought, what? And
Wow.
yes, and oh, then after this book, I wrote this one, another New York Times bestseller, Goddesses Never Age. And I wanted people to know that ageism and constantly talking about your age and what to expect does more damage to people's health than anything else. This is completely
Mm,
science-based. It's as relevant for men as for women. And then predictive programming in 2018, this came out, Dodging Energy Vampires, and 1 in 5 people has a personality disorder. Now I would call them Nephilim hybrids. And
mm,
these are the people who drain your life energy. We call them borderline narcissistic, histrionic,
mm,
schizotypal. 1 in 5 people, as I'm talking to you, their name is going to go right through your head. They're the ones that wreck every Thanksgiving, every Christmas. They are they are smarter than you can think, but they do things you wouldn't do in a million years. I just watched on Hulu last night a documentary called Scamanda, and it's about a woman in California, the Silicon Valley area, San Jose area, where she scammed her whole church, telling everybody that she had terminal cancer. She never had terminal cancer. She raised money, and the people, they're so attractive and they're larger than life, and they scam everybody, and most of them never get caught. As a matter of fact, Dr. Lee Merritt, my colleague, was an orthopedic spine surgeon with the Navy, and she said the Navy is incredibly good at determining who can go into a submarine and be under the polar ice cap for 3 months. And they're very good at screening. She said there's one type they cannot screen for, and that's a psychopath, because they're chameleons. They know exactly what you're going to, they become who you want them to be.
To be,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then my awakening came when COVID started. Now, really, I always knew that the medical system was messed up. I was president of the American Holistic Medical Association, but, I was named one of Reader's Digest Most Trusted People in America in 2012. I've been on the Watkins Spiritual 100 list and Oprah's Super Soul 100, the 100 people who are uplifting humanity with their spirituality. And then COVID hit, and I just told the same truth that I'd been telling my entire career. And it turns out that was not okay. So I became one of the disinformation dozen, the 12 people on the planet, the 12 people on the planet responsible for 70% of the misinformation, disinformation on COVID on the internet, all created by George Soros and Media Matters, his company out of London. And I also, with Clay Clark, I wrote this book, The Mom's Guide to the COVID Shot. And we just self-published this. It's a lot of pictures. It's available on Amazon, and we've given all the money from this for Maine Stands Up, a group that I founded so that people could be together. When you were driving your truck around, we were getting together in my living room and sharing meals and hugging each other and keeping people out of the hospital. So that's what the COVID thing was a 5-year period of time when it was almost like a flare went out in the heavens for people like you and me. And we said, it's like the imaginal cells in a butterfly. The caterpillar's dying, and then the cells that make a butterfly come online. And it was like that for those of us who saw it and woke up to it, and then through God's internet have met each other. And so, it's Dr. Lee, it's Lee Dundas who spoke there. Lee and I spoke on the same stage, actually the back of a flatbed truck in a little town in Utah at the summer solstice of 2021 with Sasha Stone and the Patriot Street Fighter,
Scott McKay, yeah.
Scott McKay. We've all met each other, and we all were born for such a time as this. And then I was prayed over by Christians at the Rhema Bible Center, at the Rhema Bible College, at the first Clay Clark Reawaken America tour. And we were given a copy of Pastor Kenneth Hagin's book, The Believer's Authority. And I read Ephesians. We battle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities of darkness that are not of this world. Our job is not to fight them, it is to expose them. And also reading what Kenneth Hagin said about Christians. If we are who the Bible says we are, made in the image of God with power and authority over darkness, then what the heck are we doing? And I watched all these churches closing, and I watched Franklin Graham, Billy Graham's son, sponsoring all of these COVID shot clinics. And and as a JV Christian, all right, kind of new to the Bible. I was raised Episcopalian, kind of new. I wasn't that new.
Hmm.
I knew that Christ raised Lazarus with no syringe when Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. I knew that Jesus said, "These things and more you shall do also." And so I knew that what was happening to so-called Christians was a complete scam. And I loved what they said at the Peace of Heaven conference, which was it was an exercise in faithlessness. Faithlessness. I mean, what God are you serving? Because if it's Jesus, you did not need a COVID shot. It's the biggest scam that the planet has ever known. Quite recently, actually 2 days ago, I was asked to speak at a global conference on the importance of pregnancy and the support of pregnant women out of Oslo, Norway, going to be a global summit. I wrote back and I said, if I'm not able to talk about the COVID shot and what it did to fertility, then I'm not interested. I have been asked to ignore the elephant in the living room for my whole career. Fetal monitoring came in when I was an intern, and I watched the C-section rate soar to 25% overnight because no one knew what the monitor meant. And they still don't. They still don't. There's not a single study, not one, that shows that that Hewlett-Packard fetal monitor does anything except raise the C-section rate. And yet it's in every labor and delivery suite. And when you ask a pregnant woman how she's doing, she and her partner look at the monitor. Just like what RFK said about everyone should be using wearables, right? So we can all look at the monitor instead of inside.
Yeah. So it just seems as if every industry, but let's focus on yours, which is the medical industry.
Right.
It's been hijacked multiple times in order to, from my observation,
Mm,
remove people further from God and the things that our bodies are normally supposed to have happen organically, the way He designed this masterpiece in His image,
that's correct.
to
Yeah.
a way that they could make things seem convenient, and it makes it an easy sales pitch in order for them to make crazy amounts of money to fund their operations. Am I getting that right?
Yes, and it started, it was always there, but it started in big time with the Flexner Report in 1910, where John D. Rockefeller hired Flexner to go out and allegedly standardize the medical schools. But what they did instead is they vilified everything natural. So the schools of homeopathy, naturopathy, osteopathy, herbalism, all shut down. And they made standard Rockefeller medicine, which is drugs and surgery. And the drugs that were now considered the standard of care were all made from petroleum products.
Petroleum.
And
Hmm.
John D. Rockefeller, of course, was head of Standard Oil. He
Hmm.
also took on the education system. So
Hmm.
everyone would be put in schools where they learned, math, science, social studies to become factory workers.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's where I feel that really the mass programming, and I've spoken with other people in the medical field who are awakened like you and I are, and they
Right,
tell me, Matt, some of these physicians, because it's like the military when they put them through basic training and boot camp, when they
right.
initially go into these medical schools, they put them through all kinds of intensive study and curriculum studies and no sleep deprivation in order to achieve milestones within their degrees, that it psychologically rewires their brain into completely embracing whatever they're being taught. And so, and especially since we've had the COVID years as a case study of how human behavior within the medical realm, how people not only complied, some of them were so complicit that even they saw that there's dollar signs involved with it. And I hope, God and the system can sort through all of that at some point. But I've heard that just and I see this a lot with intellectuals, is they are so self-righteous in the sense that they had sacrificed a lot with school, and their dad and their grandparents went to Ivy League school, that there was just an arrogance to them. And
Oh, it's
it's
unbelievable. I,
and,
I went to one of those schools. I know the arrogance very well.
Yes. So, it's really going to take God like showing up and showing these people that, like, look, I don't care how much school you've gotten, but you don't have all the answers. And it's time to eat some humble pie for a little bit, I would say.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. Matt, there were many doctors who knew not to take the COVID shot themselves, but they made sure that everyone else got it. Now, that
Mm,
is a very particular sin,
mm,
a very particular sin.
mm.
Many people got fake vaccine passports. I knew that I could have gotten a fake one, but I didn't want to go anywhere where they required one. I said,
Yeah,
why would I go there
I don't
when
want to participate. Yeah,
no, no, not at all. And so here we are, and we know, for instance, that in people who got the shot with the active ingredients,
yeah,
it replaced the, excuse me, my
that's
voice
okay.
is going.
That's
They
all right.
replaced the sperm in the
Mm-hmm.
testes with mRNA and spike protein.
Mm-hmm.
So we now have a whole epidemic of infertility.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and also too, I mean, I noticed when um they did a big propaganda push of getting celebrities, athletes,
Yes, yes,
politicians to on camera, hey, look, we're
yes.
doing it, right? But I'd heard that some of them were getting saline, some of them just placebo. Uh
Or many times they did a retractable needle. So they
oh
put
yeah.
the needle in, but it never went in. It just retracted into the sleeve.
Mm, mm.
And so that's what was done. By the way, Congress never had to get the shot. No one at
Wow.
the CDC had to get the shot.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. You know, wow, we can, yeah, that's, it's, so, okay, so in 5G warfare, it's all information of the mind. It was wild to me. Once I did learn about Event 201, how
Yeah.
the globalists, they call them the New World Order, had staged a exercise in order to get everybody on the right game plan of what they were wanting
Yes.
to do. And so, I would suspect that um, with some of these individuals, when you really start understanding how they got into positions of authority within the medical establishments, not just in America, but worldwide, that it seems like it seems like kind of an Operation Paperclip that, you know, where you had taken uh, these former Nazis that, you know, came from the Third Reich
Yeah.
and embedded them into society from the 1940s. Now we're dealing with, I mean, some of the older ones, like the Klaus Schwab, it's like, okay, he was around back then. I mean, he was young, but some of these people have, and I'm hoping that we can learn through time that they had parents and they're descendants of people that came from from the
Well,
Third Reich.
they're in those bloodline
They're in the
families.
bloodline families. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I was
Yeah.
kind of going for.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, as you know, we had Kathy O'Brien there at the conference, and Kathy was trafficked to the Bushes and also to Gerald Ford. So these bloodline families do this kind of satanic thing to their own children. The
Hmm.
other thing that Gene Decode told me yesterday, and I've heard this from other sources, this whole gender bending thing that we've gone through, the trans agenda and so on, they will be able to tell the gender of a fetus in utero, and then they will give that pregnant woman certain hormones so that a genetic female will be, or a genetic, whatever they will, they're not the same gender as they were in utero. They come out looking like the opposite gender.
Mm,
So that the
mm,
women, like many Hollywood women, have very narrow hips.
hmm.
Did you ever notice how many Hollywood couples don't have their own children? They
Yeah.
adopt black children
Or surrogate
or
sometime. Yeah.
surrogates, and it's because they can't
Mm,
actually.
mm,
There's
interesting.
things that are so weird. And one of the things I knew as an OBGYN, I wouldn't do a tubal ligation on a woman till she was at least 35. Why? Because I knew developmentally we'd change our mind. You don't know at 21 how you're going to feel at 35. Therefore, I always knew you didn't take a 12-year-old who suddenly decides they're non-binary and go in and do genital mutilation on them, removing breasts of 12-year-old girls, 14-year-old girls. So now there's a huge movement, the detransitioners. But it's too late if they've had things done to them. These are not reversible. I mean, if a boy gets on puberty blockers at a certain age, he's going to have a micro penis from then on. There's no reversing that.
Mm-hmm.
We find the vast majority of these male to female who get a neovagina, that the body closes that space down. They're
Mm-hmm.
not supposed to have an opening. So I've talked to these transitioners, and it is heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
And Tennessee just passed a law that they can no longer do it. But the number of gender clinics that just sprung up, and then we got rid of the term mother, we got rid of the term breastfeeding, made it chest feeding. The American College of OBGYN was just at a meeting that Kennedy had for the ASIP people, and
Mm-hmm.
they walked out. They were furious. American Academy of Pediatrics, they've all been completely compromised. You cannot trust the institutions you've been taught to trust. They are not trustworthy. Your doctor is not trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
Any shot that they want to give you, you shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And people have to know this.
So,
Have to know this.
you know, I love talking about exposure of what's been happening because it's so important for people to know.
Yeah.
But I also find it's important to dream about a world where we're entering into and some of the solutions, especially coming from people like you, Christiane, of like if you were to work with RFK or if you were to someday, be president or anything can happen, like what kind of solutions do you think that we should do to overhaul the medical industry and give it back to we the people so we can start healing ourselves and start, fixing the brokenness that they've caused and created so that way our great grandkids can benefit. Like, do you ever think about that? Because I know it's sometimes because in our space, it's so heavy because of what we've learned. But do you ever get downloads of like, oh, wow, what if it could be like this? What if we can do this differently? Is there anything that you want to share about that?
Yes, yes. That's the rest of my life. I'm writing a book called Made in the Image of God for such a time as this. And therefore, I'm going to lay out how you teach people the truth. And I'd start with pregnant women, and I envision, God willing, that this would be the new educational system from in utero onward. Like you could enter that cycle anywhere, but I've always said conception, gestation, labor, delivery, the postpartum, breastfeeding, menopause are all physical metaphors for the way God comes into human form. And I've been teaching that for years. And now I'm going to put it all together because this is the training everyone needs. Made in the image of God. This is how it works. It's inside you. I mean, do you think anyone ever went around? Well, God knows they're trying to be God. They're not God, these Nephilim hosts or the enemy. They're not God. They cannot create realms. Humanity can create realms with our thoughts and so on. We're very, very powerful. And when you're connected with God, then you would teach a little kid something as simple as when you cut yourself, it heals. You would teach them that the body has an immune system and you don't need to be afraid of germs. That's how they did the big psyop. Germ warfare. No, no, no. Louis Pasteur on his deathbed said, oh my God, Antoine Beauchamp was right. It's not the germ, it's the environment. So I would teach people how you live in harmony with the earth, pure water, pure air, sunlight, real food, all of that. It's so simple. It's
Hmm.
so simple. And, obviously, AI and all the stuff, you might have that for some things, but it's never going to replace, like, for instance, learning cursive, learning how to write cursively. It does very specific things to your brain. Kathy O'Brien said that is how she healed from the MK Ultra that she was exposed to from the age of 2, learning how to write cursive to know what she thought, not how she was programmed. What do you really think? Just like Jamie Winship teaches people how to find their identity. What does God call you? A warrior for the innocent, an emissary from heaven. Like it's never, oh, I'm a doctor. Yeah, okay, right, fine.
Sure. Hmm.
But I want people to know who they are and and what the mission is specifically. Now, one of the ways they can tell that now for your listeners, what lit you up at the age of 11 to 12? What lit you up? What when you first heard it, did you go, that's what I want to do, right? Yeah, and I remember reading a book then called Natives of Eternity, and I was so thrilled. And it was a woman named Flower Newhouse who ran the Christ Word Ministry in Escondido, California, and she had done pictures of angels and nature spirits and all this wonderful stuff, and I found it so thrilling. So that was part of my identity that I knew at that time, that okay, the doctor stuff was just I I feel this. I did all that so that people would actually believe me. But I knew
Sure.
all this stuff beforehand. I come from a family where we signed people out of the hospital against medical advice or they'd be dead. So when I went to medical school, I already knew that there were some problems with medicine. So when someone wanted to sign out against medical advice, I would be, let me in, coach, I'll go talk to them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you're right. God was positioning you for these times where people would look at your resume, your credential, and all the
Yeah.
amazing things you've done throughout your life to really resonate with you in a symbiotic exchange. And I think that's super important. Let me ask you, you're talking about God being able to use certain people and communicate with people. What do you know about the pineal gland and how like things in our environment like fluoride, and they're so big on trying to make us take fluoride that what do you know about that part of the brain, and how from what I'm understanding is it's a center, it's the lobe that really connects the divine spiritual
Yes, it does.
connection.
Yeah, and it looks like a pine
Pine
cone.
cone.
So
Yeah.
let's have a moment. What protected you against COVID? Pine needle tea,
Mm,
so yes, so you want to, the beauty of the pineal gland, it is your direct antenna to God, and you can decalcify it with just a little pinch of borax each day.
mm,
And you can just either bathe in borax, like I'll often put a cup of baking soda, a cup of borax, a cup of Epsom salt, which is magnesium sulfate, in the tub and soak, and that will help to decalcify your pineal. But you
mm.
can just take that little pinch of borax. Anything, there's so many simple things that work. But the
Yeah.
main thing is drink pure water. I mean, yeah, fluoridating all the water was just a way to keep you dumbed down and
Yeah.
tuned in. Yeah.
It'd be interesting. Like I come like I'm gonna go see my dad actually this weekend. I love him so much, and he's always ever since I was a kid, he's always had a hot tub because he was blue collar. He worked his body to the core, and he's
Yeah.
always sore and stiff. And he's like, "Son, every man needs a hot tub." And
He's right.
I'm like, "Wow, Dad." But the big question I want to ask all you doctors is like, what can a hot tub owner potentially use instead of chlorine to purify the water? Is there anything that could be added to the water to obviously keep it clear and clean, but also create those extra benefits of absorption into the body because he's getting like skin irritate. He can't even really use his hot tub much because the chlorine just eats up his skin and it's like it looks like eczema almost. I mean, he is so because I know it's like a combination of things that could be going on with him. But I'm just wondering if there's something that we could use instead of chlorine in hot tubs because then more people can get the benefit, you know.
Well, I think we could use chlorine dioxide, which is a water purifier. But
Mm,
what it does in the body, because you can bathe in it, I mean,
mm-hmm,
you do like half of a shot glass of the activated stuff
mm-hmm,
in the bathtub, soak for
mm-hmm,
20 minutes. Lee Merritt
mm-hmm,
does that. But that's what chlorine dioxide is. It's a water purifier. And
mm-hmm,
they have not wanted people to know about it because it's anti-parasitic. It
mm,
does all kinds of great stuff. Doctors, finally, the FDA just came out with that it was safe. They have jailed doctors who've used it. I mean, it's one of the best
mm.
remedies out there. So I would look into that as the way to purify the water in the hot tub.
Chlorine dioxide, interesting. Okay, so we're
Chlorine
talking about
dioxide.
parasites.
Yeah,
I've been learning so much about parasites lately. It just seems like in the truther movement, because health is such a big deal, because if we can help each other heal and be healthier,
right.
we could be more effective in the battlefield. So talk to us and talk to my audience about what you know about parasites. And me, I'll be honest with you. I've been taking Dr. Artis has a supplement out there. It's a dropper, biodefense, I think he's calling it, where I just drop it in. Literally, I drink it in my water bottle. But just since I've been taking it in the last 6 weeks, I've noticed that my midsection is starting to trim down in my core, and I have more clarity. I don't really need, caffeine as much. So can you share with us what you know about parasites?
Absolutely. All right. Cancer is parasites and parasitism. Let me talk about that as this sort of global thing.
Sure.
Parasitism is where one organism lives at the expense of another. Humanity has been parasited. It's been parasited spiritually through a lot of false teachings of the church. Think about it. Jesus had one message, and it used to be called the way before the Council of Nicaea, where the Catholic Church decided, well, we got to control them. And the message of Jesus was freedom. The
Mm-hmm.
message of Jesus is do these things and you'll be free. My kingdom is not of this world. So he was telling you how to be in this world, but not of this world. Then
Of
the
this
Council of
world.
Nicaea came about and they decided, what the canon was. And, basically the King James version has a lot of really good stuff, but they have some stuff that's not so good, like the meek shall inherit the world. The meek does not mean the pious people who do what they're told by people like Fauci. Meek
Mm-hmm.
is a fiery being. I think it comes from, a fire horse or something. The meek people
Mm-hmm.
are like you and me.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, so there's the energetic parasites, the spiritual parasites. I told you about this book I wrote, Dodging Energy Vampires. Those are the people in your own family who make you feel bad about yourself. They run for the victim position. Oh, she made me hit her. I would never have beaten up my wife, but she made me. Okay, so they're the victim people and they're sucking off your energy all the time. And then so what the COVID thing, weaponized empathy. Normal people feel bad for others and you go naturally. What is true religion? Taking care of widows and orphans. That's what Jesus taught. Take care of widows and orphans. So when Fauci said, wear a mask to protect grandma, you take this shot, that'll protect other people. Most normal humans who didn't know any better said, I'm a good person. I'm going to do that. And that's how they got you. First of all, they calcified your pineal gland so you wouldn't know any better. And they also made you believe that the polio shot got rid of polio. They didn't tell you that it was from spraying DDT all over cities in the summertime that caused polio. And so that's how they did it. And so that's parasitism, you see. So they got all these people to believe a certain way and took away their sovereignty. So our sovereignty is this: you are made in the image of God, and your rights come from God. They don't come from the government. So the United States is a very special place. It is the city on the hill. It is the only government in the whole world where it's based on your rights come from God, and the government is there to protect your rights. It's we the people, and your rights come from God, not the frickin' government. Now, of course,
Yep.
we've been taken over by the United States Corporation in 1871, so you know that history. I want to tell you another thing I just learned about parasitism. There's an energetic parasite that went into each of us, particularly the light workers, the people like us, when your parents signed the birth certificate. The birth certificate made you into a slave. The
Hmm.
numbers on your birth certificate and on your social security card are bank accounts.
Hmm.
All courts are banks. The judges are paid from your legacy account, and they could be accused of tax evasion because that's your money, not theirs, and they get the money. So theoretically, you could 1099 a judge and get the money back. I don't think anyone can actually do it, but theoretically you could. So our lifetime labor has been used to run the government, to run the
Hmm.
courts, which are banks, and so on.
Hmm.
So that's the first parasite thing, energetically. Then there are the parasites that were in the COVID shot, and the parasites that they're spraying from the chemtrails in the sky. And so when you understand, oh, and all of the good parasite remedies like turpentine and all that have been taken out of the medical journals. If you look, if you get, I love this, Brian Artis, who I adore, is buying these medical texts. He's got one from 1790, I think. And a virus is described as the smallest parasite.
Hmm.
Okay. So it's all been parasite.
Yeah, and they've tried to erase it from
They've
medical
tried,
history and
yeah,
human history because they have been weaponizing it and using it against us.
that's right.
That's insane. And
Yeah.
wow. Going just real quick, just back to what you're just saying about the Corporation of America. When I first learned about that, Christiane, it connected so many dots for me,
Yep.
especially because I love history. I love, okay, so his history is
Yeah.
information that they've wanted us to learn. So of the information that I think that is factual, it makes sense, especially when you look at the Revolutionary War and fast forward to the Civil War and how they've never wanted us. When I say they, I mean like the crown or the empires of the world. They never
Right.
wanted us to truly be free. And
No.
so they gave us the illusion of freedom, but then
Yeah.
they bound us by a financial debt slavery system through the Act of 1871. And they got Abraham Lincoln into a pickle because of all the debt that was incurred from the Civil War. And it was a trap that they had set, hook, line, and sinker. And especially when he was talking about the greenback and having sovereign money. I mean, any president that's tried to have sovereign financial systems, the outcome has not been good for them.
Well,
And
Andrew
so
Jackson did prevent a central bank from forming, and I think that's why Trump has Andrew Jackson's portrait beside him
picture. That's
in the
right.
Oval Office. Yeah.
That's a wink, wink for those who know. You know,
Yeah.
and the what you're saying about the birth canal. So I noticed it's all maritime law terminology, right?
Yes.
Everything has to do with nautical terms, water terms. Birth canal, a doctor, dock tender. These are just amazing things when you start to think
Even
about what it
Stephen
is.
enters the, yeah,
Canal,
birth canal. Yeah. It's
yes,
like,
yes.
what? It's unbelievable. You know,
Yes.
Jordan Maxwell, he does amazing work on that. The Statue of Liberty. Liberty does not mean freedom. It means on a ship, you're at liberty until you have to come back. So if you look at the feet of the Statue of Liberty, there are chains on those feet.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. They hide it in plain sight with all of their symbolism and yeah, the whole Statue of Liberty, even statues, and there's so many things that it could, can be explained and talked about. And I'm actually, since the show's so new, I'm really wanting to do some roundtable conversations with people of certain fields that
Yeah.
really specialize in these things and how we can kind of cross into each other's information. But okay, so going back to it real quick, the Act of 1871, the Asusta QV Trust.
Yeah.
That is how they've been able to trade us on the stock market and make tons of money off of looking at us like cattle,
That's right.
like vessels in commerce, right?
Yeah.
Because that's why, when you don't understand what's going on, they do, and they're making a ton of money on our ignorance, right?
That's
So,
right. But I think we're going to see this all turn around in the near future. I know we've all been told it's coming, whatever, but there have been some big moves. And as I told you, I had spoken with Gene Decode, and he said there's this huge rock underneath one of those bases that was bombed in Iran. And that rock, now this is going to be way too much for most people, but he said that rock comes from a planet called Zion, and it came here because the Zionists had ruined their own planet, so they came here to parasite ours. And that gigantic rock was part of the way that they summoned fallen angels and demons
mm,
to
mm.
keep the humans um, MK Ultra. And now here you are, the Ultra MK. So we're reversing all of it. And you know what I find exciting is this particular time, this turning point in history. And I envision myself, sitting around a campfire with my great grandchildren and them saying, what did you do? Where were you during the change? What were you doing? And we'll all sit around and tell the tales of what it was like when we lived through the most tumultuous stage of human history.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so important. It's funny you should say that because since I've awakened and had God position me into these different situations of meeting amazing patriots, amazing truth tellers, amazing real physicians that are really trying to heal, the healers, the light workers. I've uh, I've caught myself now collecting souvenirs again for kind of like a family time capsule
Yes. Yeah.
because I feel like we need to recapture our story because that's what people used to do, Christiane. They used to sit around fires for thousands of years and they
Yes.
would tell stories about what their great grandfathers and mothers used to do and that was the real history timelines and then somehow that got hijacked probably around the 18 to 1900 transition of the Rockefellers and the Illuminati and the birth of the secret societies really fully submersing themselves into our civilizations. But yeah, I mean, I really find that it's important for anybody who's out there who's watching this today. They're trying to make everything so digital, even photographs, and to where those things could get lost between cell phones and you really let's work together to try to go back to some analog, maybe create some scrapbooks, let's start journaling again, let's start writing each other letters in cursive because it's
Yes.
so therapeutic. And let's get back to basics because we have to pass down information in this information war. Because especially as we approach the AI generations, it's so important for us to just, let's get back to, I mean, I'm ready to do some paintings in some caves if you ask me. So, you know.
Yes. 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 Now you're taking biodefense, Brian Artis's thing. I want to
Mm,
give you another little tip. Um,
okay.
we've found, and Lee Merritt is someone you're going to have on your podcast because she is the one who's done all of the deep dive research on cancer being parasites. And her website, Dr. Lee Merritt, she gives you parasite protocols. So there's a number of things that you can do, but I want to give you some concrete information. I just bought an organic Artemisia wormwood plant. Now, when it grows up a little bit more, she said if you eat 3 leaves a day for 3 days, and then off for 4 days, and then on for 3 days, it's what absinthe is. The liqueur
Oh,
absinthe,
licorice, black licorice.
which,
Yeah.
which is green.
Oh, wow.
And they tried to outlaw it in the 1800s. Here's what you need to know. Anything they try to outlaw is probably good for you. Like right now, they're trying to outlaw nicotine
Yeah.
because they weaponize nicotine. My friend Jane Barlow, barlowherbals.com. Jane is making a tincture of Native American tobacco that you can use that will, for many, many people, completely eliminate the side effects of the COVID shot
Hmm.
or whatever. So,
Yeah.
and that's another thing Brian Artis has talked about with nicotine. It can reverse Parkinson's, it can reverse myocarditis, all kinds of stuff. But for parasites, wormwood, black walnut, clove, those things work and have always worked beautifully. And Jane Barlow Herbals, she has Hulda Clark's formulations. Her father worked with Hulda Clark, who was very famous for her parasite protocols. And so Jane has put them into what's called Clarkia, and she's got all those in a tincture. So that's another thing you can do. So the Artemisia, I just bought a plant, but it's got to grow up a little bit. And you can also use chlorine dioxide, works very well. You can use the stuff from Tractor Supply, Panicur, which is fenbendazole. You can use the horse stuff and ivermectin, the horse stuff. And Lee said, I mean, it's not that easy to do because you're looking at the syringe and
Mhm.
the dose is for a 2,500-pound horse. So you've got to figure out what your weight is and how much of the pace that is. But
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, that's one way to do it. And
Wow.
there's many, many ways. And I think the main thing to know is that regular deparasiting is good, but the energetic parasites you're going to get through your phone, and we know from that talk by Michelle Peterson on grooming of children. Boy, at this point, I wouldn't let my kid have a cell phone till they're 18. What I heard from her was so bad. The parasiting, the grooming, that's parasiting, by the way, of young people through the cell phone was amazing. EMF, you got to do stuff to block the EMFs. And there's a lot you can do. Get Ethernet in your home instead of Wi-Fi. There's EMF Sol, SOL.com, great company. And that stuff is very, very well studied to block the EMF on your computer, your cell phone. They have
Hmm.
little bands you can wear. There's all kinds of things you can do. But the main thing, I think, more than all of those, is to realize that you have God indwelling as the Holy Spirit. Now, I want you to think about the Shroud of Turin. They can't figure out the Shroud of Turin to this day. When Christ rose again, there was an electrical something that was so huge that it imprinted that cloth, and nobody's ever been able to figure it out. That's the kind of power. If Jesus said, "These things and more you shall do also, I go to prepare a place for you," then we've got that kind of power. And I've seen it in people who've had a near death experience. They come back, everything heals. They realize, oh, I'm not this body and I'm eternal. And then they come back into the body, like my friend who wrote Dying to Be Me, Anita Morjani. She had lemon-sized dents all over her body from tumors. They told her she would need skin grafts. Nothing. They all just healed up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much evidence on things that God has placed here for it's easier for you and I because we have a relationship. We believe in Jesus Christ as a living spirit. But
Yeah.
for those that haven't fully awakened or haven't reached their hand out to Christ yet, there's little breadcrumbs. There's so many little clues as to
Jesus is chasing you. When I first
yes,
heard that song, His goodness is running after me. I remember thinking, really? And no, because I was just baptized in September 17th, 2023. I mean, I'm new, but when I watched the baptisms in the church I go to, it was just like being in labor and delivery. It was the same as being in the delivery room, and I was stunned. I said, "Oh, this is real. I mean, this
super
is
real.
real." Yeah.
Yeah, I just was able to visit the Reagan Museum and Laboratory in Simi Valley, California, and I was so lucky because they had the Dead Sea Scrolls there, and
Wow.
it was so interesting to me to see, God's language transcribed and put out on our planet so long ago, and how even the Jewish religion and the Muslim Islamic religion, they were all recognize Christ, right? And they all
Yes. Yes.
and Christianity is kind of like the root of it all. And but they obviously broke out on tangents and did their own thing. And but it's just so neat to see these ancient artifacts that the public can see. And there's so much information out there if you do the research to show that like God is so real, and He sent His Son in a human form to be amongst us and to teach us principles and to give us an opportunity, like you said, to find freedom through Him. And I just feel that that's you boiled it down to the most simplified way of navigating through all this minutia of the 5G war that we're involved in is He is seeking you, so find Him, and you will be able to understand so many more things in all the different spaces of what we're talking about. I mean, because you've mentioned Nephilim on this interview today, and that leads people to understanding that certain gospels have been removed from the Bible, like the Book of Enoch,
Yes.
and that is an interesting concept. I still haven't fully read through it all, but I've just gotten pieces of it, and there's so many clues to what really happened from giants and floods and beings from different dimensions taking form and shape of maybe what we would know today as an extraterrestrial. Um,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so these are amazing times. They don't have to be overcomplicated, even though sometimes they are. That if you just take them in fragments and then you relate them to what you can grasp onto, it makes it so much easier to navigate. Would you agree?
Yes. And in the meantime, it's very important that you keep yourself healthy, because we are the remnant who's going to create the new system, the new
Mm.
world. Now, we've been the pioneers, so we've been out there, hacking away, and people will wake up and come behind us. We're not going to be living in 15-minute cities. But it's going to be all hands on deck to create the world that we know is possible. And it's going to begin with people having families. The most important thing is the family unit. That's what they have tried so hard to break down, because when you get your initial identity and your initial safety and security from your family, one of the things we learned over the weekend was that they target children with single parents, and they target children who are kind of, they don't quite fit in, a little bit on the spectrum and so on, and they're looking for an identity. They target children who do not have a strong father. They've done everything in their power to make sure that we don't have strong fathers, like coming up with this concept of toxic masculinity. I mean, wow. And yes, there are family destroyer men. I mean, there are men who go in, and if she can't be with me, I'm killing her and I'm taking the kids too. That happens. But in general, we have belittled fathers and men. So we got this whole generation of women currently in their 20s, 30s, 40s, with the blue hair and the nose rings, and and they're like they carried feminism like way too far. A woman
Mhm.
needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. What's happening now, which is very exciting, all the 20 something young women are following the men to this other place where they're saying, okay, we watched this, that didn't work. So we want to be where the good men are. We want to have babies. We want to have families. We want to get back to what's important. So it's a very exciting time.
It really is. It really is. I mean, gosh, we can connect so many from just our own firsthand account of what we're noticing on how they're how the enemy, and when we say they, they can mean the New World Order. They
Yeah,
can mean on the deep state.
right.
So I have to catch myself sometimes when I'm explaining things and I say they. I really want my audience to. I want to try to like as best I can pinpoint to who they are, but we can say for this conversation of talking about dividing the family, it's been a global evil satanic
Yeah,
death cult. Let's call it for what it is. It's a death cult
yes,
that takes their allegiance to Satan himself
yep,
and has built a hierarchy structure. They've used models like either communism or true fascism, Nazism, um, and it's since morphed throughout time. And they found that the best way to decay or erode the fabric of a nation or a society has been through dissolving families.
that's
And
right.
and just like they removed God the Father from us individuals, which is a separation between a father and son or daughter, they've done that same thing in the physical realm with moms and dads and children. And that's their plan. That's their MO, because then the government, the corrupt government can then do whatever they want to do with those people, especially the children. And that's why we did the Rev 17 conference in Yuba City. So Rev 17, folks, you've probably seen it on some of my other episodes. It was a conference that our pastor, Pastor Dave Bryan, asked me to develop and put together on behalf of Peace of Heaven, which is our nonprofit that is going to become not just one, but in the future, multiple facilities to bring
Yeah,
children who've been rescued from sex trafficking for a safe place for them to heal and get all of their needs met in order for them to be completely redeemed and put back together so they can live prosperous, beautiful, wonderful lives. But Rev 17 is Revelation 17 in the New Testament, which our pastor always says, keep reading, because if you go into chapter 18, it talks about their system being destroyed in a single day, which is a Bible prophecy promised by Jesus that he would come and he would help destroy what the culmination of their system. There was Mystery Babylon, which is the system, but specifically when it comes to trafficking, it was the personification of a woman that was referred to as the whore of Babylon. And she was a very conceited, narcissistic, power thirsty woman who rode upon a beast of 7 heads and 10 horns, holding a golden chalice full of iniquities and impurity. And she would just blow and just always uh, brag about never anything happening to her because she is so powerful and all important because she trafficked in anything valuable on the planet at that time, which was like precious metals and spices. And but it also, and through the scriptures, talked about how she trafficked in human souls,
right.
and she trafficked to the kings of many nations, and they were basically in bed with this whore of Babylon. And God never disappoints. When he gives a promise, he means it. And what we are doing today is we are helping to fulfill the prophecy to destroy this whore of Babylon. And we are gathering with amazing human beings who want to join forces with us in whatever category that they belong in. We're getting together to help rescue children and to bring them to safety because they are God's children and they're all of our children and they deserve to have a great life. And so that's where I was able to meet Dr. Christiane Northrup leading into Rev 17 conference. And I'm so glad God brought her into my life because I've been praying for a fun friendship like this, and she's so awake. So thank you so much for coming on our show.
My pleasure. My pleasure. We're just getting started with this. Yes.
We are. There's going to be so many more episodes, folks. So I hope that you guys can stay. Please like and subscribe this show, like and subscribe to the show. Share it out with your friends and family, people that are just still trying to figure out what is going on in this world. Because honestly, we need to work together. And God, that's what God wants for all of us is to help each other. Let's not put each other down for not understanding. That's the enemy trying to divide. Just love on people, meet them where they're at. Not everybody is going to understand what you're saying to them, but just be patient with those people because throughout the timeline we're living in, things will happen as a third party verification that will then wake them up. It's just like every day, right? Some people wake up at 5 in the morning. Some people wake up at 7 in the morning. You got the teenagers that wake up at noon every day. And that's just how you have to look at it. But, through love, that's the most powerful force in the whole entire universe is just love each other, no matter what. And this has been another great episode of Ultra MK Podcast, where we are reversing the narrative. And I encourage everybody to, if you're wanting to support Peace of Heaven, where we are raising money for the newly purchased Leo Chesney Center through the Rev 17 conference. God bless us with just over $2 million to help us meet our goal to purchase the 10-acre facility. But now this is where all the work begins because we're going to have to renovate it and turn it from a former low security women's prison into a paradise where we want it to be beautiful with murals and rose gardens and waterfalls. And so this is what we are now raising funds for. So if you want to donate $1 a day, I mean, you spend that in the coffee shop anyway. So if you can do $1 a day, just go to peace. That's like peace and love, peaceofheaven.life, and you can learn more about our mission and you can support the children. So Christiane, can I bring you back here really soon? Because I got so many notes that I've been writing since our conversation. We have a lot more to explain, don't we?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Okay.
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome. Well, have a blessed day and I'll catch you later.
Great.
Okay.